have to delve into the deepest parts of the things that you're hiding from. And the moment you confront those and those demons, and they truly are demons. And when I say demons, it's the number one lie that we tell ourselves. Everything will be okay. When your family says, "Hey, you're drinking too much," "No, I'm fine. This is normal for me." Or, "Hey, I think you're doing a little too much of that. You're kind of incoherent." "No, I'm just trying to take care of the pain." I think I would rather deal with the physical pain than the emotional and mental pain. And when people start getting over the lies, especially, and I'm not talking about the ones where you bought something without your spouse knowing. I don't get involved in that stuff. Like, I'm not going to be your sidekick on that one. But it's the lies that you tell yourself that I am okay when you know that you're not. And it's those lies that you tell yourself that's in your head that's so convincing, because when you think it, you start to adopt it and you start to do it. Okay? When you start doing it, you start believing it. Mm-hmm. And then when you believe it, you get other people to believe it. And it's not a way to fix yourself. It's just a way to find more reasons to sedate yourself, either through drugs or alcohol, or even worse, that ledge that we're all working so hard to pull you off from.
Right.
So, for myself, when I came out, I had no problems with what I saw and what I did. And that might have something to do with my upbringing. I was an immigrant from the Philippines, came to this country when I was a year and a half years old. When I started elementary school, it was the fall of Saigon. And so can you imagine being Filipino, not quite an American yet, and the Vietnam War ending? There were things that were said to me that I didn't understand back then. And so growing up, it was always a daily fight for me to make it home, because I was bullied, because I could barely speak English. And so when I joined the military, I was able to just shut things down. And it might not have been the smartest thing, because at the end, when I did finally get out, I had so many things trapped inside of me that I didn't know how to express. And, when you think about PTSD and trauma, we all have it. Okay, we all just have different degrees of it. There's not one person to your left and right, the person in front of you. When you look in your rearview mirror, that person driving behind you that's having a bad day, PTSD too. It may not be through a battlefield, but it's a different kind.
There is different
And I wanted
kinds.
to mention also that, there's absolutely different kinds.
Hold on, Ray. Let's get into that in a second. I have to take my first break.
Sure.
And hold that thought, and we're going to get right back to that in just a minute. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Moments of Clarity in just a moment. Thanks.
You're listening to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner. We welcome your input at 866-826-1340. Tiffany will be right back after this.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Did you know that your physical health plays a big role in your mental health? Healthy minds and healthy bodies go hand in hand. The problem for many is finding the time and getting the results they want. X-Force Body is perfect for people with busy schedules, with a mission to inspire you to become leaner, stronger, and in the process healthier. X-Force Body coaches will encourage, motivate, and inspire you through every workout, helping you achieve the results you desire. Learn more about X-Force Body. For more information, visit www.xforcebody.com.
Hi, this is Tiffany Warner, your host of Moments of Clarity. Living with a mental health disorder is not easy. If you or someone you know are struggling with this, please know it's so important to seek treatment, and I'm here to help. Please visit the website at momentsofclaritywithtiffany.com to view blog posts and resources on this site to help educate and inspire you to take action, because there's no shame in seeking help for mental health. While you're there, please take a few seconds to sign up for my email list. You'll get some extremely valuable educational and entertaining content that can be sent right to your inbox each week. Plus, you'll also get instant and free access to my guide on managing your anxiety. You can also follow me on Twitter at MOC with Tiffany and at Facebook at Tiffany Warner. And once again, the website is momentsofclaritywithtiffany.com. Thank you so much for your support and for listening to your show, because change can only come when we stand together as one.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
We are back to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner. To join in the discussion, call 866-826-1340. Now, here's Tiffany Werner.
Hi, thanks, and welcome back. This is Moments of Clarity, and I'm Tiffany Werner. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm your host. My two guests today is Raymond Asante and Lynn Perrando, and they are entrepreneurs. They are partners in business, and they're starting all these companies, and I don't know if we've gotten quite to that yet, but to help people, especially veterans as well, to help them recover from post-traumatic stress, and especially post-combat and things. And what we were talking about before the break was that not everything is strictly because of veterans when it comes to post-trauma, PTSD. And I had to go to a commercial break, but I left Ray with, he was saying, Ray, you're saying that that not everything is just post-combat and for veterans.
Yes. One of the things I was able to also dig back into after I got out was that a lot of people already had PTSD before they went in.
Yeah,
and
it makes it worse.
Yeah. You know, when you look into, certain units, you know, when you get to know people from certain units, let's say they were much more specialized. Well, why did you join? It's like, well, I wanted more of a challenge. Okay, but what's the real reason you joined? Well, I was picked on a lot, and I wanted a change of lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And that in my case that was also also the case. But with regards to different levels of PTSD, if you're picked on as a kid and then you join the military, what comes out is tenfold, because you transition to something else without resolving that one key part. And it's always difficult to think back to what it was like before you were in the military, and I try to tell people who approach me, it was like, well, I don't want to talk to you about it because you did some intense stuff with your unit. I was in infantry. You were, your unit was pretty specialized, and I didn't go through that much. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't want to know I don't want you to tell me what I went through. I want you to tell me what you went through, because we all have our own levels of extremity. I have a friend of mine who's never served a day in the military, but he has worse PTSD than most of my friends, and I'm surprised he's still around. I have to contact him almost every few weeks just to make sure he's okay. And I think the reason why he won't come forward is it's almost like what you say in your introduction. There is no shame, and there's that stigma, that we grow up, as men. And like for me, I have no problem throwing my dad under the bus. He's been long gone. Even if he was still alive, I still throw him on the bus. The way I was brought up. It's like, hey, be a man, don't cry. And if you have problems, just suck it up. And then he'd go back into his story of how oppressive the Marcos regime was back in the Philippines. It's like, not the same thing. And so I adopted that. And I think a lot of that upbringing that we're trained gets reinforced in the military when you're in basic training. Hey, that's the enemy. He wants to kill you. You don't have the luxury of showing emotion and showing compassion. And I think that's the wrong mentality, because it takes a lot of courage to take someone's life or to hurt someone, but it takes just as much courage to not. And I think that people are ashamed of reaching out for help, and that's one of the biggest boundaries that we have to get through. And in my case, I'll throw myself under the bus. I was never physically abusive. I'm just not that kind. I'm more of the quiet type. And in the case,
it's like the quiet ones you got to worry about. They're not smiling at you. They're picturing you on fire.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, I was never that way. Even during deployment, I was just a calm guy that was always thinking, I really want to do this. I have to do it. But when I got home, I started creating a whole new dynamic. Like, I left the war, but the war didn't leave me. And, my wife, I've known her since second grade. We went to high school together. And I noticed, like, towards, like, the peak of my PTSD that she started to become someone different. And then I thought, I need to, I've been getting therapy for 8 years. That it hasn't helped. And I'm blaming her for everything that either I'm not doing or I'm doing wrong. And, the trauma that I gave to her was my silence. And sometimes, I'd have one-word responses that will, like, literally just cut you down. And it's it was just the way, it's the person that I was back then. And then after a while, I started noticing, her attitude and her changes. And then she just became me. And that broke my heart. And that was the point where I realized I have to fix this, but in order to fix this, I have to fix me. And so I seeked other forms of treatment. We're still a work in progress. But when I was able to recognize that and start to identify my own problems, I saw it in other people. It was like super clear. It was like in Technicolor. I started to notice these things in Lynn. It's like, Lynn, I think you have PTSD. My wife has PTSD from me, and I've got to fix that. I've got to help her with that. But you have PTSD, and I can't pick it out, but, I think something's going on with you. And, I'll let her explain that. I don't want to speak for her, but she's got her own.
How did you think Lynn had it? What were you noticing before Lynn says if she did or not? How did you notice? What were some things that you were concerned with your friend?
Well, for example, like, a lot of people mistake me for yelling when sometimes I'm just talking loud, and I think that's a lot of that's a lot of military people. You're trained to sound off, and back when I was a kid, I had a very soft voice. So imagine basic training for me was kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
But with Lynn, sometimes I would talk and I'd raise my voice and she'd just shut down. And I thought, wow, that's just not normal, because and that was very common with the people around me. My wife is one of the strongest women I know, and for her to shut down, and Lynn, the other strong woman I know, and then she shut down almost immediately. You don't shut down because nothing's going on. You shut down because something triggered you, and I hate that word triggered. I really dislike that word triggered, but that's exactly what happened. And so I started to talk to her about it, and I said, look, I don't really delve into your personal life, but, can we talk about that? Because pretty much a lot about me.
You're twitching when I yell at you.
Right.
Yeah. Something's wrong with you because you're twitching when I yell. But it's a good friend to notice that with herself.
Well, and it was funny because we had shared so much business in our business relationship that I didn't really. Business for me was an escape at that point, and I was in to not get into too many details, it was in a very toxic marriage, and there were things going on, and I, in my mind, I had only associated PTSD with veterans.
Right.
It's
a lot of people
more
do.
Of what I had heard about. Yeah, and I didn't know, and I had an uncle who had served in the Vietnam War and had done 3 tours and came back. And at the time, they didn't have a name to identify it. And I remember my mother and my grandmother not knowing where he was and not knowing if he was okay. And there were bouts of substance issues and homelessness. And, sometimes they didn't know where he was. And to me, that's what I had learned. Okay, now that we know this term of post-traumatic stress disorder, he had a label from what he had gone through before he died. And I had never associated that with anyone who hadn't served. So when Ray mentioned it, my first response was, no. I'm just in a difficult situation. That's not someone like me, no one's shooting at me.
Right.
But once
just not bullets.
Okay, no, but you don't.
But other things it can damage us too.
You put other things, very much so. And then until I sat down with a therapist and I said, I introduced and said, this is what, my friend had noticed in me, and explained everything that was going on. And